The Gospel Oak to Barking line has seen significant investment by TfL since its creation of the London Overground in 2007. One such investment is the opening of the Barking Riverside extension, which has opened on the 18th of July 2022, 3 months earlier than planned. In this video, I will be looking at the Barking Riverside extension, which connects key residential areas in East and North London, as well as an overview of the new Class 710 trains on the route. So, without further ado, let's get this show on the rails. Our journey today begins at the new Barking Riverside station, which was opened as part of the new extension to, yep, you guessed it, Barking Riverside. The station was opened to serve the new residential property development area being built, and as you can see, much of the construction is still ongoing. As with Barking Station, the line's previous terminus, the station is located in Zone 4 on TfL's travel card system, and adds one extra stop to the original Gospel Oak to Barking line, although as you can see, my tube map didn't seem to have been updated for this. Cycle storage facilities are also present at the station, something which I don't tend to see that often on most of the overground and underground stations, so that makes it useful given TfL's policy on peak time cycles. The station's ticket machines are the same as those found on the new Northern Line extension and the new Elizabeth Line core, although I am still disappointed at the fact they don't accept contactless payments. As with the GOBLIN pre-extension, services run every 15 minutes between here and Gospel Oak, so that does make the area rather better connected than before. I was surprised at the fact that despite coming 2 days later, I was able to get one of the goodie bags that were given out on the open day. This includes a flask, a plastic bottle, and a pin badge of the London Overground roundel. So pretty nice result. Right, it's now time for us to head into the platforms and board our service to Barking. As can be seen straight ahead, there are lifts available for disabled access, which is really useful and a nice feature to have for those with reduced mobility. There are also toilets, as can be shown from the sign, which I was really surprised about. The main station concourse, as you can see in the photo, is rather impressive. As we head towards the top of the stairs, we have a glimpse of our train into Barking today, which is a Class 710 Aventra EMU, built by Bombardier Transportation between 2015 and 2020. A total of 54 units were built in various subclasses, 8 of which were used to replace the Class 172 DMUs following the Gospel Oak to Barking line's electrification. Right, it's now time for us to board the train and take a look around. As can be seen, the seating layout of the train is the Metro longitudinal style seating, which is completely different to the 2+2 Metro style seating, which was on the Class 172s these trains replace. Although I would argue the fact that the GOBLIN line is very much a Metro style route, and as such, a lot of standing room is required, which this seating layout enables. One thing I do like about these trains is the walk-through gangways, as this enables you to see down the full length of the train, as well as avoid any complications with interconnecting doors. We are now coming to the end of our 4-carriage train, which seems like a suitable place to base myself for this trip, along the Barking Riverside extension. I would like to look at some more features of the station though before we head off, so let's do that. Perhaps one of the most useful features of the station is the step-free access between the train and the platform. Whilst it's not perfect, it is relatively similar to the Elizabeth line, and as such is deemed to be relatively adequate. I would say it is also a vast improvement compared to other stations on the Gospel Oak to Barking line. The station has 2 platforms, both used interchangeably. At each platform there is a display screen, but I would honestly ignore the flickering as that's just the way my camera is picking up the footage. As for the features of the train, the seats aren't that plush, although they are ergonomically designed and are better compared to many other offerings out there on the TfL network. The armrests also don't move, although I would argue that it's not really necessary. It's also worth noting that certain seats are coloured differently to aid those with reduced mobility, as well as visual impairments, which is a nice touch. There are also grab handles and grab poles, reflecting the metro-style routes which these trains typically operate. Perhaps the most welcome addition on the trains is the USB Type-A sockets located at the end and in between each carriage, although I would argue these are rather poorly placed. At both ends of the train there are tip-up seats located, both for the use by wheelchair users and bicycle users. The use of electronic display screens to display information and adverts was also a nice touch and does show the technological advancement of the trains. I do like the London Overground roundel showing the date and time, which I think was a rather nice feature personally. Now that we've had a look at the Class 710, it's now time for us to look at our route today. This will be a really short ride along the extension between Barking Riverside and Barking, although the extension's so new that Google Maps does not recognise the fact that it goes over a flyover straight out of the station. Following this, we then return to the London Tilbury and Southend Railway used by C2C and arrive into Barking. Our estimated journey time for the one stop to Barking is around 5 minutes. So, without further ado, it's now time for us to get rolling. Well, maybe not. As with most terminus stations with only 2 platforms, the inbound service has to arrive before the outbound service can depart. Now that the inbound service is arriving, it's now time for us to head off.
Next station, Barking. Change here for District Line, Hammersmith and City Line, and National Rail Services.
As is common with trains in the UK, the track on the left-hand side is for outbound trains towards Gospel Oak, whereas the track on the right-hand side is for inbound trains into Barking Riverside, hence why we needed to wait for the inbound 710 to arrive before we could depart Barking Riverside. One thing I would like to note is that, whilst the Barking Riverside extension did open a few months earlier than autumn 2022, the station is still far behind compared to what was originally planned. The extension was originally due to open in December 2021. However, the ongoing impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic subsequently delayed the construction of the extension, and as such, it was deferred until late 2022. The revised opening date was suggested as September or October, so to open it in July 2022, earlier than what the revised schedule suggested, is still pretty impressive if you ask me. The theme which I've noticed throughout this extension is the constant construction works for the new residential property area. Although, below, as we can see, there are a few railway lines as we begin to rejoin the London Tilbury and Southend Railway to get into Barking. That being said, flyovers are one of my favourite types of rail infrastructure, as you do get a really good bird's eye view of everything going on around you. Below, we are now about to rejoin the London Tilbury and Southend Railway, which is the C2C branch towards Grays via Rainham and Dagenham Dock. What we are now passing is the site of the Renwick Road Station, which, whilst not planned to be constructed initially by TfL, has been safeguarded as part of the Barking Riverside extension, should the need arise to build the station in the future. Now that we're on the move, one feature which I have not yet discussed about the Class 710s is their passenger information systems, including features such as journey progress, the destination of the train, the next station, as well as the line status of the Underground and Elizabeth Line routes. Those familiar with the Class 345s used on the Elizabeth Line will be aware of this feature. Right, we are now approaching our final stop of Barking, not for the train, but for us on this journey today. Before we alight, however, I would like to discuss a few changes that have occurred at Barking Station itself, the former terminus of the Goblin. The most notable change is that Platform 1, the terminating platform, is no longer served by London Overground. Whilst this does create more complications for the District and Hammersmith and City Line connections from platforms 2 and 3, this does create a lot more connectivity opportunities for the C2C network, as services that run through platforms 7 and 8 go via Rainham to Grays, as well as to Stratford and Liverpool Street on weekends. Taking into account the fact the extension hasn't been open for very long, it is still really hard to process the fact that London Overground trains aren't terminating here and are continuing through the station after a few minutes of dwell time. Right, conclusions. Overall, I would say Barking Riverside is a modern and accessible station, and it will definitely bring benefits to commuters in East and North London for the years to come. As can be seen, Barking Station itself appears to be more heavily loaded passenger-wise compared to Barking Riverside, although I can imagine things will change for Barking Riverside as the years go by and the property development area is built. As for the Class 710, These are definitely a step change compared to what they replaced, and have definitely revolutionised journeys on the Overground for the few years that they've been in service. Well, anyways, I hope you've enjoyed the video today. If you did, please do give it a like as well as share it, as that really helps the channel to grow. If you did enjoy this video and want to see more content such as this, why not consider subscribing, as well as enabling notifications, as I now publish new trip reports, train comparisons, and journeys on a regular basis. Well, anyways guys, that's it from me. It's now time for me to head to the day job, but until that next video, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.